Welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Joe Moro is chairman of Queensland Fruit and Vegetable Growers, a state industry body for commercial horticulture. He's been a casual director since 20th of November 2015. It's very casual. It's probably permanent, and chairman since the 25th of November 2022. Joe's an experienced farmer and proprietor of the family farming business. That's Moro Sons. First of all, Joe, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know about permanent. I think I've got an exit plan to get out. So,
but I bet you've forgotten how to exit.
oh no, they put it in the Constitution. You can only be there for so long. So, I know how to get out now.
So you can only do it for so long. But the thing is, how long is so long?
Well, you got 2 terms as a director, but you get an extra one if you become chair. That's how they con me into staying for an extra 4 years.
Yeah, good on you. I reckon you enjoy it anyway, and you're doing a great job.
No, I do enjoy it, and I've always been very passionate about the industry.
Absolutely fantastic. Tell us about the industry. It's going through some tough times. I mean, the whole country is now, because of the lack of fuel, but it's a tough gig, isn't it, to do what they're doing at the moment?
It's not for the faint-hearted. Let me put it that way. But yeah, you're right. And it's really been a mixed bag the last 10 years, I think, from coming through COVID and then coming out of COVID, cost of production rising. It's been rising for the industry over that whole period, and it's been causing huge problems with viability. And now on top of that, we've just had the massive blow, when maybe we were just about looking forward to maybe some stabilisation in the industry. But now these fuel prices and the on effect to all our inputs, everything from fertilizer to plastics we use, you name it, anything that's transported and anything that's made from petroleum products is just gone up, and hearing shortages all over the place and different things which people probably don't realise are coming through the pipeline.
Do you think? I mean, I don't think pollies understand at all because they get into this sort of what's the word? Sort of a day-to-day thing, a bit of a habit. They send the wife out or the husband out to get some food from the supermarket, and that's as much consideration that they give the rural and the regional sectors. But it's a very tough gig. Are they doing enough? I mean, I can probably tell you'll say no. How can they do better?
Well, yeah, the biggest, one of the areas which has really hurt farmers is the overall compliance and not being able to pass on their costs through the system. And consumers obviously are paying more at the checkout, and we appreciate that. But farmers are also squeezed at the other end because their costs have been rising, and they haven't been proportionally going through the system, which means, unfortunately, that maybe consumers would pay more, which is also it's not a good outcome for continuing to sell our products to the consumer. So it's a very catch-22. What government could do, they could really take the foot off the pedal on a lot of red tape that they bring in, a lot of regulations. So my CEO is talking about workplace safety, HR laws. There's so many things that have just put the cost onto us, and we unfortunately cannot pass it on. And that's why you're seeing a lot of farmers leave. And I think in the long term, you will see prices go up even further because there'll be less farmers around in our industries, because most of them want to get out. They're just trying to find a way to get out.
But how would they get out? I mean, it's you've got to have a buy for it, and what happens is that they get just bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden, we've seen it before, that they're too big and they can't control the expenditure because the costs are very, very, very large. Where do they go from here, though? Because I read somewhere, it was one of the rural newspapers this week, that the veggie growers, about 20, I think almost 25% of those growers are saying either they're going to cut back their production or none at all, and that's not good for Australia, is it?
No, it's not good. It's not good for Australia. It's not good for regional towns because at the end of the day, they provide the I guess the inertia to employ people, and those people spend their pay packets back in those towns, whether they're local Australians that are working hard in our industry, or whether they're backpackers coming through. and even people that are in the palm program. But you asked the question. I would say that every farmer is on the market for sale, but the problem is they want to leave with a good price so they can retire with dignity, and that's the catch-22. There aren't that many buyers because, and we're seeing farmers being stuck on the land. So the only option they do have is to probably scale back, and that's an option for vegetable farmers, but some of the tree croppers. And I'm a tree cropper. I'm a mango farmer. You have to sell your land to someone else, or you abandon the orchards, which is it's a very difficult thing to do because it causes a lot of problems internally within your farm. It's not just a matter of we'll just pull out 10,000 trees. It's very costly even just to do that. So it's very difficult for farmers that want to get out, how to get out, unless there's a buyer there, like you pointed out. There are not many buyers out there, and unless the industry is in a healthy situation where they would, a buyer would come in to invest. But even that may be not the best outcome because what you're seeing is a consolidation and you're seeing bigger and bigger entities, and some of them are not farming entities or family farms. They're very corporate structured organisations, and they also impact negatively in the regional towns because a lot of their business is done out of Brisbane or Sydney and even Melbourne in some cases. So it's the industry's changing, and I think it's getting corporatized. I'm not sure people are really going to recognise us in 20 years' time and say a lot of mistakes were made back in the 2020s.
We see what's happened with the fuel. We rely on it being bought from overseas, and I can see the agricultural industry, horticultural farmers and stuff, as they go out of business and leave the farm. We have to have that produce still here, and I can see it like in Hawaii, for example, where I used to live. They bring in everything comes in by ship mainly. And if we get to that stage, which we are getting to that stage now, it doesn't augur well for the future, does it? Because, we were as happy as pigs in mud until the Middle East stoush broke out. And now we've realised that we didn't do a whole lot of thinking about it. My dad always says the feet are dancing and the heads for thinking, and I think they got it wrong because we're in a terrible situation. And the same thing's going to happen to our produce, isn't it? I mean, they will, we will lose out, and we're going to have to bring in just about everything. That's just our security is put at risk. How do we stop that? How do we get back to a bit of common sense, Joe?
Look, I think we have to have a look at the whole supply chain, and how it's costed and how it works. I mean, you make an extremely good point there, and I think the best area to look at is processed product. 90%, well, maybe 90 is on the high side, but 80% at least is imported, and that means it comes on a boat and it's brought in from somewhere else. And all that processed product that people eat, they might think is local. They used to do a lot of beetroot in Queensland. That's all done in New Zealand. Although New Zealand is seen much more of a close friend of Australia. But at the end of the day, it's still imported. It still has to come on a boat. It has to come across that little bit of ocean. But a lot of other stuff comes from a lot further afield. And the fresh product is so far predominantly Australian, but is under threat because of what you just pointed out. The fuel cost increase is on what we call the freight rates. A lot of the transport companies, to remain viable, have increased their freight rates by the thing they call the fuel levy, which has seen 100% to 200% increases in costs to the farmer, and no mechanism to pass it on. And that's where a lot of them are thinking, especially the vegetable growers, well, maybe we won't plant as much this coming season, and they're making those decisions now.
It's pretty scary stuff. What about, the most obvious is the cost of energy. Take away the fuel and stuff, you've got to pay for the electricity. And we see governments going down the path of renewables, which, as Malcolm Roberts says, the unreliables. That must worry the heck out of you too.
It does. It worries us in the sense that it's all these costs are going up, and the reliability, of course, is something we do worry about. But it's been fuel that's brought back, I guess, the very hard message about how we're reliant on power energy and any hiccups in the system. is a problem. The good news with electricity, besides the fact that we have a great sunlight, which makes those solar panels work, but they only work during the day and when it's not overcast. And when those occurs, we have to rely on traditionally still coal, and we've got an abundance of coal. So, in that sense, we've got security, but we don't have as many coal power stations as we used to. So there is a concern there about what would happen if we did have a major, and we did have an experience in Queensland where one of the power stations had a bit of a problem, and they had to rely on other sources of power, and the price went up. So it is a concern, but fuel really highlights it the most right now. And some areas have got no fuel, and they're worried about either harvesting or getting their crops in the ground. But it's more the cost of it rising, and there has been some relief given by the government just recently, but whether or not it flows back to lower fuel rates for the trucking guys who then lower their freight rates is going to be interesting. A lot of the damage has already been done in the last 4 weeks.
Yep. I mean, you've had some pretty horrendous weather too. I mean, I can recall in a short space of time, 2 very strong, gentle sea breezes that have done enormous damage. But can you imagine though, if you had a couple of windmills up there, they'd end up in Esperance. They would have come away.
Well, they actually survived, but the problem was what the wind does to us. I mean, if you talk about Jasper, which was 3 years ago, and I had severe flooding on my farm, I had lots of water through my place, but the damage to the road infrastructure. I came up from Cairns yesterday, drive up the Coranda Range Road, which I don't know if you're familiar with, Mike, but it's been affected for 3 years. It's in single lane in 3 parts, and we're talking another 12 months, and that's 4 years by the time they might fix the road up. And that's just one of 4 roads, critical roads in the far north. And that impact, it's not affecting our movement of product, but it's caused a lot of stress to everybody, because sometimes they shut the roads at night and you can't come home. You have to go the long way. So there's a lot of distress. So our infrastructure's completely failed because of those cyclonic events and the rainfall they brought. And when I've seen where the water has fallen in other parts of Queensland and Northern Australia, and I just when I see the video of it, I know that they can clean up and it looks okay when you get there, and say in a couple of weeks' time, but the infrastructure is going to be damaged for a lot longer. And that's my worry about the Middle East. They blow all these things up. They don't take 5 minutes to fix up. And we're going to see the legacy of a lot of these, whether they're natural disasters or man-made with this war that's happening in the Middle East. They're going to linger for 2 or 3 years, maybe longer.
Yep, I think and when Donald Trump says, I don't care about the Strait of Hormuz, you worry about that, after he went in and it's odd that a president or a country would go in, attack another country, and then withdraw, saying he's won, but the other country's in a stronger position. I've still, a few more scotches I think I need to help me understand his way of thinking, because it's going to last a long time, isn't it? You're going to have some very bad experiences, and we saw the Prime Minister last night come on and talk about nothing. But he came on anyway, and I think he was sort of trying to soften us up that the next few months or 6 months, maybe a couple of years, are going to be very tough for Queensland. Where does that leave your members and the farmers up there?
Well, they're very scared. They're extremely scared. I mean, I was the reason why coming back from Cairns, I'm a mango farm. We had some mango meetings, and the sense is of, and we finished our season, so we missed all the trouble, if I can put it that way. But we're thinking next season, which is if you're from the Northern Territory, that's only literally 6 months away. And where are the prices going to be for all our inputs into what we need? From packaging to transport to our fertilizers, all our chemicals. So we know that we can't pass on the prices. Prices can't go up too much because the consumer then might not buy our product. So it's a very scary time, and I think a lot of the farmers are in that same boat. There's a lack of confidence, I think, that they will be able to get through this next period, considering we've gone through a very tough 10 years in the hort industry, with a lot of changes that have occurred in the workplace environment, with wage rates, how we deal with casuals. There's been a lot of tightening up, which is good for the worker, but it's been bad for productivity and bad for business. So there's a lot of, I would say farmers are scared. I was talking to some on Saturday at a function. They were not optimistic. They usually are, but they're very, very pessimistic, and they don't feel there's any answer there. And I don't, they're not even sure government can help us.
Yeah, I look at our first guests were talking from they were from a Q car, and how they've diversified with I think it's a brilliant project, and it's we have the resources in this country. We don't have to dig. Just got to make sure the product grows. But they've diversified. Do you think with your industry, your members, there is, and we can only do so much, because if everyone diversifies to a particular, like for example, I lived in Sunraysia, and they'd all rip the grapes out and plant something else instead of just some doing it. And then you'd have the glut of that. So they'd rip all those out and go to something else. Do you think diversity is what you need at the moment with your industry? And you can't have everybody doing it, because all of a sudden what was there is no longer, and you have this glut of another product. So how do you combat it? Do you do what QCAR have done?
Well, look, yeah, some farmers have looked at what they call it vertical integration, which is looking at value adding their product, and there is a market there for some farmers to go into what we call the agritourism sector, where they can do something different with their product. And there's a number of nice little mango winery. I'm neighbours to one. There's a couple other liqueur businesses around, ice creameries, and the coffee industry up on the tablelands has done a lot of wonderful things, where people come up and they spend time at wonderful coffee environment, drinking nice coffee. But not every farmer can do that. If all say 200 or say 20 or 30 in one particular industry changed a certain way, you don't have enough tourists. So it's limited. But changing from one crop to the next, you can strike it lucky for a period of time, but then once people look over the fence and say, well, look, there's money in avocados, I'll use that as an example, and we've got an overabundance of avocados growing on the tablelands now, and other industries of people looking over the fence and saying, well, I might go and plant that tropical tree. But with the tropical trees, once they're in the ground, it takes a while for the full impact to occur. Well, the vegetable crops can go in and out, but you still got to get a good price, and that's where the problem lies. I know a lot of farmers that used to make very good money from some crops, because they knew that every third year there'd be no one in the business, because they've all lost money the last 2 years. But now the cycle has got much longer. You might have to wait 7, maybe even 10 years before you get that bonanza crop to make up for all the losses you made the previous year. So diversifying is not the answer. I think we have to look at that whole supply chain and see where we can reduce the price increases, and maybe there forbid say bring the cost down. And there doesn't seem to be any way to make the system more efficient. Farmers are as efficient as they can be on the farm, but it's everything else that happens onwards after that sort of makes it harder for us. And there's a lot more compliance than what there used to be when I first became a farmer, which is really frustrating farmers, putting extra costs, and it's just, some of it's really ridiculous.
Yeah, I just, when we had the orchard, Dad ripped out the oranges and planted avocados, not realising it takes a long time to grow an avocado tree. So we ate very well, but we didn't have very big meals, because waiting for those damn avocado trees to grow. But he always found that the middleman, or the guy who would buy the produce at the market, he was always whinging about them, and rightly so. Can you eliminate the middleman when you deal with supermarkets? I know some have tried, but not all that successful. How do you get a better return for the guy that gets his hands dirty and rolls up the sleeve and does it tough?
Well, and that's the complexity of the industry now. We have different levels of, I guess, how we supply, and they refer to them as tiers, but I won't try to make it too confusing for everybody. But basically, growers that go through the market to the supermarkets, there's a middleman, and the middleman has to make a buck too. I'm not saying he's ripping off the system or nothing. All I'm saying is that there's a cost to go that way as well. The price that he gets the same as the price that the farmer that goes direct gets. So theoretically, the farmer that goes direct will get a better return. So a number of farmers have done that, but one of the problems you have when you decide to go direct is that you got to get bigger and you have to, get a certain level of production. So all those issues have flowed through, and you get different feedback from each of the way farmers deal with where they sell their product. So some of the people that are going direct are generally, I wouldn't say all happy, because it's never as straightforward as saying that. But there's a lot more ability to pass on some of the costs. There is more negotiation directly between them. But not every farmer can go down that road. It's like the question you asked me about diversification. It's not as simple as it looks. So, and that's what I meant when I said the industry is going to look different in, say, 10 or 20 years' time. I'm not sure people are going to be happy with that, how it looks, where you're going to see a much more corporatized, larger players, businesses that look more like a true company structure, a board of directors, a CEO running the business. And a lot of farmers will also tell you, well, they've never been successful, but it seems to be a growing trend. And I think that's what the nature of the change. Now, whether we like where we go as a society, and I know a lot of farmers don't like the idea that we're corporatizing, but that's where we're heading. And I think that's how the industry will survive, if it's going to survive and remain productive and viability. But it will have an impact on these regional towns, because the more you consolidate farmers, the people that live in the towns, that are permanently live in the towns, don't live in those towns anymore. They live in other places like more regional centres or even capital cities. And for example, solicitors, accountants are not used locally. They're used in the big cities. So all that fabric gets taken away. I'm not sure people are going to be happy with the end result of what's happening. It is changing. We're not seeing 100 farmers leave in a hurry and food disappearing off the shelves. But what you're seeing is a change in how it's done. And will it be good for Australia in the long run? I personally think not, but it's where we're heading.
Yeah, it's very sad. Now, if somebody wants to find out more about you, and we need to do more of these things, we played one of your videos before. Always
Yes.
welcome. Send us whatever you have, if we can help in any way. The offer is very sincere. If somebody though wants to have a bit of a chat to you or go to your website, and how do they do that?
Well, the website is the best place to do. Just type in QFEG on Google, and you'll get there quite easily, I'm pretty sure. And there's the contact details there. Our CEO is new, and he's very keen, and I think he's very keen to be in contact with people to find out what we should be doing and what policy direction we should be going. But the best port of call is to go to the webpage, and there's also media contacts there. But the contacts is the way to go, and I know not hopefully they will get back to you very quickly. And I do appreciate yourself, Mike, for giving us the opportunity to air what's going on in the industry. But we're just sort of coming out of it, and now this fuel thing has really knocked everybody over. So
Isn't
yeah,
it?
so it takes yeah. What can I say?
Well, you can say bloody Trump.
Well, it sounds like that's what I might say. Yeah, I probably would.
Yeah. But we can't say that on camera, can we? So I won't say that. I retract that, Your Honour.
Well, he is the president of America, and he is the most powerful man in the world. But God,
It
he's
doesn't
very
mean
reckless, in my
doesn't mean
opinion.
he's sensible.
Yeah, he's a reckless man.
He is indeed. Joe Moro, final question. What are you doing for Easter?
It's for me, it's the quiet time. So we do go away, and we'll end up at one of the local beaches, Trinity Beach. It's a nice place. We'll spend 3 or 4 days there with my family, and just relax and be quiet for a while, and do a bit of swimming and eating and laughing, and then come back to the farm and do a bit of hard work.
Yeah, have a bit of a whinging too.
No whinging. That's the
No
rule. No
whinging.
whinging.
I get out of it. You tell me a farmer that doesn't whinge, I'll tell you.
Well, we won't be whinging
Farmer.
4 days. We're not. We can whinge the rest of the year.
Hey, I keep telling my wife, because I think North Queensland is God's country, and I would love to move just a little bit north of Port Douglas or even to Mission Beach, And my wife says, I'm not having some of the backyard critters in my place. So I think, bugger. But it's a great part of the world, and you are in God's country. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time.